and payouts from VC funds. Their payers exactly figured that out. Their hit rate is extremely low. And Wall Street doesn't know either. Certainly, they barely get on the curve once it's drawn and are only able to really look ahead a couple of quarters, not even a couple of years. And so this has been one of the ways of analyzing this puzzle. And so when I look at things like lifespans of technologies, those are those current technologies, and ask myself, 70 years, hopefully a little bit longer. By the way, here's the difference here. Putting the lifespans of technologies next to lifespans of people. Now, the lifespan of a technology is not quite the same. Things are born, but they really die. In fact, when they rise rapidly because they're an interesting part of the lifespan. Post-saturation, there's a replacement market, but it's not a very profitable one, and it's a commodity business, and it's not necessarily something you want to be part of if you're trying to build something. And so this is the way it shapes up, is that over time, you see that the lifespans of technologies, but it's not exceptions. They tend to progress the lifespans of individuals that lifespan. And there's a lot of technologies which are actually
single-digit trillions of dollars if you include the entire ecosystems. This is a huge amount of money involved here. So
terms of growth. And of course, you know what's coming next. And this is the phone business, actually smartphone business, not the whole phone business, and this is halfway through its run. It hasn't stopped. This is a few years ago, but it pretty much doubled since that peak. So you've had the opportunity, sure, that you could, if you were a young man or woman back in the 1960s, get into that industry, have a good solid career, and retire pretty much at the time when the industry was being disrupted. Maybe you couldn't say the same thing if you were in the PC business. So here's my life again, on top of the PC world, because I can say I'm PC man. Given the year of my birth, given the years of an engineer, working in the PC industry. Because of course, the predecessors
discs that are being thrown away or recycled, and these discs are some of them massive. You remember laser discs? Of course, that's what they were going to be in
2015, just more of them. There were CDs as well, and I don't think it was mentioned of DVD so much because the video would be on big discs. Plenty of removable media, apparently. Lots of fax machines. One in every room, in fact. Why? Because fax machines... They got that wrong too, by the way. And then we thought about things like this. This is the Mid-America title. You have the mailbox with an attached fax machine. No flying mailman got a fax machine on every corner and in every room. And there was somebody wearing yoga pants. But you had things that they got clearly on the right path. And you had back then, as we are guessing, we had smartwatches. Jobs not as great. So you had things like the microphone and the Now let's look at another data point about performance of this phone. This is what I call the CPU index, and it's a combination of three metrics, okay, which is the clock speed, which you can get in megahertz, the register width, which is whether it's 32 or 64 bits, and the number of cores, which went from 1 to 2 to, I think, already 3. And you put those on the log scale, you multiply those three numbers, and you put them on a log scale, you get this, pretty much the iPhone's CPU performance increasing in a very reliable, predictable way. The formula is absolutely spot on. That's an exponential equation, which I won't show necessarily. And by the way, Apple doesn't publish this graph. They publish the speed showing the speed of the graphics processor, which is exponential, multiplying everything with this into scale. And again, with that, next to the original number, and next to the one with that of user adoption. The memory processor, this isn't storage, this is the
earlier, we never have made it, and if we were 2 years later, we never have made it either. And we didn't know that at the time. It's just things like the iPhone was going to happen in 2 years exactly after we started, 18 months, 2 years, which was transformative.